now we're back, ready to provide you the new information and keep you up to date on the most recent issues.
Of course, we will invite you to discuss the current hot topic among teenagers.
So please join us here on Trust Talk. Welcome back to the topic of Trust Talk. It's a new year and we're kicking things off with a brand new season. We're sure you've missed us and we're apologize if we've been gone for more than a month. But we're back. Because it's February and love is in the air, we've got a special story to kick off the new season. And for those who aren't familiar with our format, the pandemic has altered various relationships, including romantic relationship. The pandemic had a significant impact on a romantic relationship, with the majority of them becoming LDRs or long distance relationships. So, Trisha, what impact do you believe the pandemic has had on our lives?
Oh my goodness, I wasn't ready yet. Perhaps Gina is.
Well, as Sky stated, this month is Feb Eve, but we are still in the midst of the pandemic. So given the quarantine protocols, travel restrictions, and minimum health standards stated by the government, it is quite difficult for the couple to reunite in this wondrous month of love. And those in long distance relationship would have to negotiate.
Yes, I agree with what Sky said. And since Gina mentioned that we're still together even though we are apart, those usual bondings and activities of those in a relationship have become a luxury, such as dating, because everything have gone online. We no longer have the time or the means to see them face to face. And because of the distance that each couple has between them, they must now think of ways to spice up and maintain their relationships. Though the distance remains, their usual face-to-face conversations have now become virtual or limited to text and phone calls.
So, trustees, this is referred to as significant changes, those romantic relationships that we have changed as a result of the pandemic. And speaking with this couple just made us realize how difficult it is. Right, Gina?
Yes,
Couple, before we go any further, Gina, may I ask you a question? Do you have a couple now?
a couple, dating, I guess.
Yee!
Well, aren't we social animals? Rar. We crave for affection, hugs, and kisses as humans.
It's a need for humans too.
Especially Sky. He has a lot of cravings, right? And he even has an air fryer.
Yes, I have an air fryer, and as you may have noticed, I already have a cat who I prefer to spend time with over other people. Kidding aside.
Anyway, back to the topic. These simple interactions are all in jeopardy as a result of the pandemic. And to be honest, my language is physical touch. So interacting without it will be different.
Yeah, especially those caresses. I agree.
Yeah, and when your loved one speaks encouraging words to you, you'll notice the warmth in his voice and they'll catch a whiff of his scent. Okay, I'm just kidding.
Wait, that's already different. That's already a different kind of craving, huh?
However, dating outside is already a luxury, and nothing compares to living in a real community and being able to touch the people you care about. Returning to Sky's statement, we have spoken to a couple who were gracious enough to share their long distance love story with us. Joran and Lynn are amazing.
They had been in a long distance relationship since 2013. Diren would travel from Manila to Cavite just to see his
Tutulog ka na?
girlfriend and spend a
Alam
few
mo,
hours
sa ba dyan?
together. And to make things more difficult,
Okay, good
the
night.
distance between them grew
Bye.
longer. Diren joined the Philippine Army Reserve Command in
Oy.
2019. but he also started working on a casino cruise ship the same year. After a year of longing for each other, Diren was allowed to return home in the year 2020. But the pandemic had just begun, and their opportunities to see each other were limited. They'd been through a lot over the years, but even though Diren and Lynn have been in a long-distance relationship together for the past 8 years and have faced many challenges, their relationship has grown stronger, and Diren proposed to his girlfriend on November 11, 2020.
When I first met her, I prayed to God that He would trust me to take care of her and love her no matter what. We stay because we choose to wait for this day. We stay because of our love for each other.
Sky and Trisha, they have been together since 2013, but in 2019, they were forced to live far apart and their relationship became long distance. They were together for 6 years before becoming an LDR couple in 2019, which is a significant change. As a result, they began calling each other every day to talk. Is everything okay with you guys?
So they were already LDR before the pandemic?
Yes, that is right, Sky. 2020, Jaren returned home to the Philippines, but the pandemic hit and quarantine protocols followed, so they can only see each other once or twice a month. Even though they are now in the same country, they have not been able to see each other as much as they would like. Despite this, they choose to adhere to the protocols due to the pandemic.
Gina and Trisha, this is what we're discussing earlier, the changes in couples, particularly those who see each other on a regular basis. Doreen and Lynn were already LDR, and now that Doreen has returned home, they can only see each other from Manila to Cavite. There is a pandemic going on and social distancing is a must because safety is their priority.
Even among friends, it is difficult for us to get together, which frustrates us. What else are those who are in a relationship? It is harder for them. Right, Gina?
But as Jordan pointed out, distance is meaningless when someone means so much. So here's my question. Are you, Trisha and Sky, willing or brave enough to embark on a long distance relationship? Sky?
To answer that question, if I believe in what Doreen said, distance means very little when someone means so much. It all depends on the individual. You won't be able to handle long distance relationship if your love language is physical touch. However, I believe it boils down to what others have said. It's up to you to make it work. I guess the same answer with Trisha.
Actually, I place a high value on distance. My love language is physical touch, so I understand. When I see him in person, I can see his body language, how he reacts, and how his face reacts on what we're talking about. And I can sense his sincerity. Because tone can be changed over the phone, there's a good chance that you'll misinterpret his reaction. Seeing him and feeling his presence firsthand is a completely different experience. That's why I place a high value on distance. But how do we make the LDR work if a distance is a major factor?
We were talking about the proximity. Wake up crew, this proximity refers to the distance between you and the person you love. When you are not together, a lot of problems arise. If you're used to solve problems together, when you fight, you'll just eat out and talk about what's wrong. However, due to the pandemic, you can no longer do that. They are becoming a long-distance romantic relationship as a result of the pandemic.
You mentioned how couples deal with their problems together, but how can they will deal with it when they are apart?
Jordan reveals a technique or a secret to solving the problem. It is done by refusing to let anyone sleep until the issue is resolved. So, I guess it's all about communication.
I beg to differ because you need space to think and pull down your emotions from time to time. So if your emotions are too high, it's okay to sleep it off first, because if you don't let your emotions settle, you might end up with the bigger problems because you won't be able to think clearly.
Really, Sky, it all comes down to the couple's preferences for how they want to solve their problem. Physical touch, quality time, such as meeting together, could help us solve the problem. It isn't entirely dependent on the couple. Also, if I'm asked if I'd be interested in LDR, it should just be a part of the relationship. However, I would not enter a long distance relationship solely to keep it going.
It's because there's a compelling reason why we enter long distance relationship today, such as a pandemic or change of workplace location. Okay, everyone, Doreen and Lynn told us about their long distance relationship today. LDR is extremely difficult. All you need to do is work at it and choose to make it work. Love won't do all the work for you. You'll need to put in some effort as well if you want the relationship to work and last. It also depends on what you want to do and how you set things up when it comes to solving problems.
And that's it for today's episode. If you have a love story or piece of advice that you'd like to share, send it to us and we'll read it aloud next time. And stay tuned for more love episodes. And always remember, love is a great beautifier.
As the COVID-19 vaccines become available, you might be asking yourself, should I get it? And if I do, will I able to go about life without putting my family at risk? You've got questions, and that's normal. The fact is, the vaccines are safe and effective. They're going to save lives. To get the latest on the COVID-19 vaccine, visit doh.gov.ph. Because going back on the moments we've missed starts on getting informed. It's up to you.
I have rice. I have Aji Sabor. Sabor on rice. Sesame seeds. Malunggay leaves. High in calcium. Sprinkle on rice. Flavored rice. Aji Sabor on rice. Ajinomoto.
The coolest and wondrous Barkada are back. We are here to provide you with current news and recent topics.
And we're here in Central Park right now with you to discuss the important youth issues.
So what are you all waiting for? Join us here and sabay-sabay tayong makailam only here at
Med
Wonders. Our Med Wonders. A year and a half or magto 2 years na tayong wishing to return to our normal life this pandemic. The friends, the galas, the jowa, kung meron man. But if you can recall in our previous episode, I interviewed Dr. Lulu Bravo. We wouldn't be able to return to our normal life if there was no herd immunity, she said. Vaccines, she added, are critical because they are the most effective way to protect us not only from COVID-19 but also from other illnesses and diseases. Thanks to vaccines, diseases such as tick dust, polio, hepatitis, and many others can now be controlled after 200 years of development. In order to slow the spread of COVID-19 in the Philippines, Cavite's representative Elpidio Barzaga Jr. proposed a mandatory and free vaccination for the city's residents. What are your thoughts on this, guys?
Consent is the most important factor for me. Consent is essential, especially when it involves people's bodies. But first, let's catch up with our beloved Med Wonders. Vaccination has reached nearly 42.6 million people in the United States. Even though we are at the tail of the end of the process, relying solely on the WHO's COVAX facility and vaccines provided by the other countries, we are the third country in ASEAN to have this many vaccinated citizens. Thank you so much for the vaccines. But before I get to my point, there is some good news. Almost 6 local pharmaceutical companies expressed interest in constructing vaccine manufacturing facilities in April. As a result, the government plans to mass produce locally made, Philippine-made vaccines by the end of 2022.
Bibo, I just have one question. Why are we so reliant on others when we have already borrowed so much money? Where do we fall short?
I believe, this is just my opinion, that I cannot speak for them because we are still in the process of upgrading our facilities. Our kakayahan, but our country are not yet there kumpara sa ibang mga bansa.
However, there are numerous legal procedures that must be followed in order to secure the vaccines that have been created.
Nandun na nga tayo sa process of constructing our own plantas. But for the time being, the government priority is to construct mega vaccination hubs. By the end of 2022, there is a planned mass production of locally made vaccines. Returning to my original point about the importance of vaccines and getting vaccinated, I encourage every Filipino to trust our government's process, science, and the process of developing and securing the vaccine. But for those who don't want to be vaccinated, andun pa sila sa process of assessing and researching kung tinitingnan pa nila if the vaccine is right for them. Or if kaya ng kanilang body condition. It's fine to do your research and assessment, but the most important thing is that we keep working.
Have you all received your vaccinations? Ibo and Zelaya, what's up?
I haven't yet, but we're currently determining if the vaccines we'll receive are compatible or applicable on us.
I'm still on the waiting list because I'm still under the A4 category and our schedule hasn't been set yet.
But, Bibo, may pagkakasunod-sunod yun, such as the elderly first, the vulnerable sa sakit, government officials, and so on. What group do we belong to? How are we classified?
The vaccination priority groups are organized into 5 groups, A1 to A5, which is classified as according to our protection needs. Priority group A1 is made up of healthcare workers on the front lines. The A2 category includes senior citizens at age 60 to up. The A3 category includes people with morbidities, and the A4 category includes frontline personnel in essential sectors such as uniformed personnel and those in working sectors identified by the IATF as essential during ECQ. The A5 category includes employee in the general population not otherwise included in the preceding categories.
Now we all know who is eligible for vaccinations and to which group we all belong.
It will be difficult to distribute the vaccines if we do not follow the frontliners' guidelines, Zelaya.
Personally, I want to be vaccinated as well for obvious reasons. If you get vaccinated early, you are not only protecting yourself from the virus, but you are also protecting your loved ones.
Bibo is correct. Kaya, mga kawanders, let us all get vaccinated and help reduce the number of COVID cases in the Philippines. This may also assist us in returning to our normal lives.
Guys, kayo ba? Natatakot ba kayo magpatulok ng bakuna?
Actually, I'm not a fan of turok, but I believe that getting vaccinated is a must for sa akin. Ikaw ba? Takot ka ba sa turok, Soma?
I'm not afraid of needles in the least, Medwonders. Just imagine an ant biting you for 3 seconds. Di yan masakit, promise.
An ant sa isa pa dinosaur. Okay, turok lang naman yun. Pero, pag takot talaga kayo, magpasama kayo sa mga crush nyo para pag natakot kayo, hold nyo na yung hand ng crush nyo, yung attention nyo is dun sa kilig at hindi dun sa sakit ng needle, madadivert.
That's a good suggestion, Bibo. Matry nga pag magpapavaccine ako. Get ready sa aking crush. But first, let's talk about the Philippines' high-risk region.
Yes, Zenaya, it's critical to keep the public informed about the areas where there is a lot of COVID cases.
Davao City, Cebu City, Iloilo City, Bacolod City, Makati City, Cagayan de Oro City, General Santos City, Baguio City, Taguig City, Lawag City, and the municipality of Mariveles and Bataan are among the high-risk areas.
That's a lot of information. Medwonders, always remember to wear your face mask and face shield whenever you go out.
Let me just add that even if you're being vaccinated, you should still wear your face mask and your face shield because remember, mahirap mahawa ng COVID. You won't be able to see your family for several days.
Let's talk about how many Filipinos have been infected with COVID and how many have recovered from it.
According to the data, there are over 2 million COVID cases.
There were a total of 2,267,678 recoveries.
Sadly, 37,405 people have died as a result of COVID-19. A moment of silence for those who have gone back home, eternal home.
Let us hope in the future that there will be fewer or no deaths because of this.
Yes, our Med Wonders. It works wonders to eat healthy foods and stay healthy.
Exercise and drink plenty of water on a regular basis. Try to at least exercise for at least 30 minutes each time to refresh your body and mind.
Huwag niyo rin kalimutang mag-pray, di ba?
Right! Every day, tayo magkaroon ng motivation.
Wait, ano yun?
I remember that there might be face-to-face classes.
We are the world's last country to have face-to-face classes.
Mga children, are you looking forward in having face-to-face classes again? Or are you scared of the pandemic? Leave your responses on the comment section.
How about you, Bibo? Will you attend face-to-face classes if you are still a student?
Well, I'd like to get my allowance back eh. Hahaha. Just kidding, just kidding. Ako, personally, I'm afraid to meet your classmates face-to-face kasi una, we haven't been vaccinated. We don't know if anyone has been infected with COVID and there may be a lack of health facilities in the school. What are your thoughts, Soma?
Well, if I were a student, I would prefer face-to-face classes kasi biruin mo, the students have missed out on a lot of fun school experiences, yung mga kindergarten and grade 1 students. Ngayon, hindi alam kung paano makikipag-interact sa ibang bata. And the prom and the graduation that senior high school students have missed, sayang. However, I recognize that health comes first, and I believe it is preferable if the school has good health protocols in place to protect students from COVID-19.
Guys! Have you heard the news about DepEd na hindi daw required ang COVID-19 vaccinations for the teachers?
Are you talking about the limited face-to-face classes, Zenaya?
Yes, Bibo, that's what I'm talking about.
So, if that's the case, it's possible that school personnel are to blame for the virus spread from teachers to students.
You are correct, Soma, because their back-to-school program did not require teachers to get vaccinated. Some countries abroad started the face-to-face classes to reduce their COVID cases. Unfortunately, their back-to-school program also caused the virus to spread because they did not require teachers to get vaccinated. Consider the number of the student at your school and school staff who would benefit if one teacher become positive. 30 to 50 students per room, right? Not to mention, the other interactions between students and teachers on the campus, it would be a disaster.
That's a pity, no? I imagine that many teachers want to get vaccinated because they are aware of the risk of not getting one. Teachers should be always prioritized by the government because not all teachers work from home. Some even go to the deepest part of the barangay wherein they would interact with other people just to give their students the modules on help their students to learn. Their safety should be guaranteed. There are still a lot of teachers who commute to school on their way to work, especially in the Philippines, which increases the risk of infection. Instead of ending the pandemic, it is resuming its spread, putting many people's lives in jeopardy. Virus has also mutated, making the situation even more dangerous.
SARS-CoV-2 has spread worldwide, and there are now 4 variants. As far as I'm aware, these are the 4 variants. First is Alpha variant, formerly called as the UK variant. Second is Beta variant, formerly called as the South Africa variant. Third is Gamma variant, formerly called as the Brazil variant. And lastly, the Delta variant, formerly called as the India variant. These variants originated in the aforementioned countries, which is why they are referred to as such. Have you heard about the DOH 7,900 test kits that have already expired?
Yes, Zenaya, these 7,925 test kits are equivalent to 371,794 tests. Zenaya, these test kits would not be thrown away if the government had implemented mass testing from the start. We could also stop the virus from spreading because those who test positive for COVID are already isolated and avoid direct contact with others, such as their peers and relatives. Finally, we would have tracked the true number of cases in the Philippines, including those from lower socio-economic groups.
I'd also like to point out that the Philippines and Venezuela are the only countries where face-to-face classes are still not available. Many Filipinos are still pondering how to end the pandemic or otherwise mitigate the effect of this disaster, which continues to prevent us from rising and returning to a normal life.
Now that we know the updates about COVID-19 in the Philippines, it's time to say goodbye to our Med Wonders.
I wish that our Med Wonders will inform completely and know what is happening in our country.
Sa muling pagpapalit ng Medical Wonders.
Goodbye world, stay safe and healthy. This is your Med Wonders, believing that knowledge is the beginning but no end.
Good day, Philippines. Good day, Georgians. We are here live with careful whispers to bring you the freshest news. And for today's headline, Philippine politicians grab the opportunity during COVID-19 pandemic. COVID-19 vaccination in the Philippines started in March 2021, and the country aims to vaccinate 58 million people by the end of the year. Based on statistics, as of September 19, 2021, around 19 million Filipinos were already vaccinated from COVID-19 virus. Yet, roughly 23 million people are still waiting for their second dose of the vaccine. On the other hand, many politicians who may run an election in 2022 have already begun to make their names known by offering assistance and goods to the public, as well as providing free mass vaccination against flu and pneumonia. A civilian in C1 Quezon informs us about an early vote buying operation carried out by Mr. Potato Foot, a future mayor candidate in their city. The said candidate is seen handing out belt bags containing cash as well as vaccination coupons bearing his name and party affiliation. This information is not shared with any higher authorities, for the candidate has an alibi of simply assisting the poor. That type of politician does not deserve to be in politics, and people should vote for someone who is truly deserving of the position. As a result, if you're already a registered voter, exercise caution when casting your ballots. If you haven't already done so, you should sign up to be a weapon in fighting against the toxicity of politics in our country. It is important to remember that it's not about the name's beauty, but the beauty and purity of the service. Once again, this is Careful Whispers, where news isn't gossip, but facts are delivered. This has been Chris Casino Jr. reporting. See you again next time for another Flash Report.
I threw a wish in the well. Don't ask me, I'll never tell. I looked to you as it fell, and now you're in my way. I trade my soul for a wish, pennies and dimes for a kiss. I wasn't looking for this, but now you're in my way. Your stare was holding, ripped jeans, skin was showing. Hot night, wind was blowing. Where you think you're going, baby?
Disco Moreno versus Alfredi. Control your temper, so don't be angry. Hindi pa awat, hindi ng galit. Control your temper, so don't be angry. Disco Moreno versus Alfredi. Control your temper, so don't be angry. Awat na mga boys, just get ready. Kasi si Sheriff ay ready. Grabe ang away nila.
Hello and welcome to Shotty. We're here to keep you up to date on the most recent and pressing issues.
I see. You've changed things up. You're early.
I'm not sure what to say, but without jeepney drivers and street vendors, the streets aren't the same. I am curious as to how they're doing these days. It is just so heartbreaking.
Let's talk about jeepney drivers and street vendors for a moment. Our today's visitors aren't just ordinary workers. They're 5 of the pandemic, 64% of affected households.
Due to the coronavirus outbreak, everyone must adhere to basic health and safety guidelines, including wearing face masks and, of course, maintaining social distance.
We asked someone to speak about her experience with the pandemic.
Good evening, everyone. I'm delighted to be here with you today. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak with you.
Consequently, Dina, what it is like to live in the midst of the pandemic?
For me, life has become much more difficult because I won't be able to see my loved ones and won't be able to go wherever I want. Since my business services were terminated, my family and I have been experiencing financial difficulties. More than half of my regular customers are unable to receive our services, posing a significant problem for the company and its employees.
As a customer who visits my dermatologist on a regular basis, I am unable to go there and schedule appointments due to the pandemic. And as a result, I am concerned about the people who work there, as I am unsure if they will continue to receive income and if they will be able to help and feed their families.
You're correct, Tony. Due to the pandemic, I am unable to visit my favorite barber shop in our town. According to what I've heard, his store was forced to close for an extended period of time in order to prevent the spread of the disease. I just occasionally wish that the shop would open sooner so that people could get the haircut that they want.
Dina, how are you doing? Have you got a pet at home? Do you like cats or dogs?
I have both dogs and cats in my home.
So, how are they faring in the midst of the pandemic?
My pets are confined to our home and I am unable to take them for a walk because I fear of them contracting the disease and infecting us.
That's terrible. What about the vet? Is the veterinarian's office still open?
I dread going to the vet, but every time I go, it's closed and I don't know how to cut my dog's hair.
You're right. Life has become so much more difficult. I wish we could go back to the days when we could eat with friends in a samgyeopsal shop.
When it comes to samgyeopsal stores, I have a friend who owns one, but he had to close it due to the location of his samgyeopsal being in a high-risk area. I just missed eating there a lot.
I agree with you.
Do you have a job, Dina, during this pandemic?
Yes, but I work from home and occasionally visit the company where I work.
Do you have any relatives who have lost their jobs as a result of the recession?
The pandemic, 3 of my relatives have lost their jobs. They still have no idea how to make money and feed their families.
You're right. Business owners reduce their employees so that their business income will not decline. I wish that those people who lost their jobs get a new one in order to support their families.
According to what I've heard, the Philippines' economy has suffered as a result of the pandemic.
Because there are so many unemployed workers right now, businesses have been unable to sell their products to customers efficiently during these difficult times.
So perhaps it's time to offer some advice to our viewers on how to stay sane during this pandemic.
First and foremost, having a garden in your home and attempting to grow food will not only save you money but also provide you with a healthy diet.
Tip number 2. Begin a daily meditation practice to help you calm your thoughts and emotions.
Tip number 3, set some personal goals for yourself. Believe me, this will motivate you to do your best every day and will improve your character.
Tip number 4. Develop a hobby that you can do while dealing with the pandemic, such as chess, guitar, or even cooking.
Tip number 5, exercise on a daily basis to strengthen your immune system and stay in shape.
These are the 5 tips for staying sane during the pandemic.
Wow! Those suggestions will come in handy for a lot of people who are at a loss for what to do.
You're absolutely correct. With some helpful hints.
So, since we're talking about how to stay sane during a pandemic, why don't we talk about how to stop the disease from spreading?
That's correct, Tony. But first, Dina, do you have any suggestions for preventing the disease from spreading?
I believe that frequent hand washing with soap and water is the most effective way to prevent the disease.
That's correct, but don't forget to use soap, mga kasyoti.
Next, if we don't have access to a washroom, let us just use alcohol, but make sure to use 70% ethyl alcohol to ensure that the virus is killed.
Tama yan! I also bring my own small alcohol container, which is very useful because whenever I go to the market and touch some products, I never know if they are infected. So it is best to bring alcohol.
Ito naman mga kasyoti, what should we do if we develop symptoms of COVID-19?
Cough, headache, and mild fever are among yung mga symptoms according to the data.
To prevent the spread of COVID-19, let us try to isolate ourselves from our family, but if that isn't possible, let us just always wear a face mask.
Do not be alarmed mga kasyoti because it only takes 5 to 6 days to be infected, but it can take up to 14 days in some cases, so it's better to be safe than sorry.
Yes, eat healthy foods to maintain a healthy body and
Wait, ask ko lang. What if symptoms na nararamdaman mo hindi mo na kaya and hirap ka na? What should that individual do?
We should seek medical help as soon as possible because his or her life is on the line.
What's up with that? May ganon?
Yes, we call it the asymptomatic mga kasyoti because even if they don't have symptoms, they still have COVID-19.
It's terrifying. Di mo na talaga alam if you're okay.
You're correct, Dina. Keep in mind that social distancing is important for mga kasyoti because malaki ang maitutulong nito para maiwasan ang pagkuha ng COVID-19.
We now know what to do if we come across COVID-19, mga kasyoti.
Keep in mind our tips and guidelines.
Before we wrap up, we'd like to express our gratitude to Dina for taking the time to speak with us.
It is also a privilege for me to be interviewed in Shopee, and I hope our mga ka-Shopee learned something new today.
This is Yani Buena
and Tony Aguinaldo.
We are signing off. Thank you mga ka-Shopee and lamang ang may kaalaman.